Hey everybody, it's Dana Joy from God Joy Creations, back to show you a tutorial for a water card I'm making. I have been given some products from the Oriental Trading Company. I will be giving a review, an honest review of my opinion of the products that I received. They are not compensating me in any way for this video. So we're going to use some watercolor paper that was sent to me. This is a very lightweight water paper, and here's the package here. It comes in a large pad and it's 9 by 12 inches, and I just went ahead and cut a piece out of this to fit onto my card. Another one of the items we're going to be reviewing today is this great Watercolor Wheel Stack Pack that I received. I love this pack because all of the colors stack on top of each other. So you have a total of 24 rich opaque colors, a tray, and a clear cover plate. I'm going to use these today on the card we're going to be making. So I'm not going to use all of them, I don't think. Probably just 3 of the 4. I'm going to see, let's use one of the greens, a blue, and maybe some of that orangey red. So we're not going to use the top layer that I have here, so we're just going to go ahead and set that aside. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab a wide watercolor brush. This is a brush that I picked up in a pack from Amazon, and a container, an old ice cream container. Excuse the look of the water because I've been practicing a little bit, so it's kind of muddy right now, but you just need some water to clean off your brush. And I'm also going to be using a 10-hole stencil to get some lines into the watercolor after I've finished putting it all down. So you're going to see that's a pretty cool technique right there. So I'm going to get my paper really wet with just some of the water. I'm going to move that because I know I'm so clumsy and I'll probably spill it everywhere. So I'm just going to move that off to the side. And hold on, I'm going to go ahead and tape my paper down. So this way, when the paper gets wet, it's not going to buckle up on me. So I'm just using some painter's tape that I think we picked up from Lowe's. It's been kind of sitting in the garage for a while. And what I'm going to do is remove some of the stickiness to it so it doesn't tear my paper when I go and lift it off of my board there. So I'm just going to line it up, just measure out some pieces and make sure I have full coverage to keep that paper down. You really don't want it shifting, or once the paper gets wet, I don't know if you ever did watercoloring, but once your paper gets wet, it has a tendency to kind of like warp. So while you're painting, you want to really try to keep that paper as flat as possible, so you can kind of alleviate having all that. Now I'm going to heat set this anyway, but at least it keeps my card kind of flat while I'm applying all of my color to it. Okay, so we're all done there. Now I'm going to go back and we're going to start painting. So I'm going to just go ahead and line everything up here. I'm going to go ahead and grab that brush again and lightly start running some water across the top of the paper. And it's just to get it wet. You don't want it to be saturated, but you still want some water down, so when you start putting in your colors there, it's going to blend perfectly. I'm also going to make a palette on a clear block, so I don't have really strong color for this card. So I'm going to show you a little bit later on how you're going to be able to get 2 effects just out of this one wheel. And it's amazing the color difference that you can achieve with using more or less water on your project. So I'm just going to clean off my brush so I can go ahead and get into my next color. And I'm just going to lay it randomly around to the side of the wheel, not really close together because you don't want them to start bleeding already on the acrylic block. So I'm going to lay it down separately. So I'm just going to grab some of that orange there. I really love this wheel because the color can be so intense, or like I said, if you add more water, the color gets a lot softer. So next I think I'm going to just go ahead and pick up one of the greens, maybe the middle shade. And again, I'm just going directly from the wheel to my acrylic block using a very wet, wide paintbrush. I'm going to clean it off again because I'm going to be going into that last color. And you don't have to worry if you do get some color on each one. All you need to do is take a wet paper towel or a baby wipe and you can remove the top color. So you don't have to worry about really cross contamination because it's easy to remove that color off of each one of those little wheels. So let me just clean my brush off one more time so I can get that yellow removed from it. And then we're going to go ahead and start getting into our painting. So I'm just going to grab some of that blue and lightly do a wash across. I'm just going back and forth to lay down some of the color. Now you can see how light that blue is compared to how intense it looks on the wheel. So I'm just going to grab my next color. I'm kind of wiggling it a little bit so I can kind of get the colors to blend. And again, look how light it is. You would never thought that you can have such a light color with such an intense pigment. I'm going to lay down some of the green. That's a little bit too light for me though. I'm going to have to add a little bit of that green and the yellow. It's a little bit, it's kind of fading out on my paper. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit more, wipe it onto my acrylic block, and then put it back to the paper. Now that's a lot better. I can actually see that green. I'm going to do the same for the yellow, again tapping it into some of the water and laying down a yellow. Again, you can see how bright the palette is compared to what's on the paper. Totally different. So I'm going to show you how to get very faint lines into your watercolor. You're just going to lay a stencil down, whatever stencil of your choice, and you're just going to push it into the watercolor paper. While the paper is still wet, you're going to be able to create a very light background on your watercolors. It's going to kind of like blend it, but it's going to be very faint. Now, if I used heavier, not as much water rather on this, I would have got deeper lines. So can you see just very faint lines? So I'm just going to lay the stencil back down, press again, not too hard because the paper is really wet at this point. But you're just going to try to get a little bit more definition onto your watercolor paper. So I'm going to check it one more time. Yep, it's getting there. Now once the paper dries, you're really going to be able to see those tiny little stripes that are going to run through the paper. A really cool technique that I learned in a watercolor class. It makes a great background. So what I'm going to do is show you a card I made using the ink directly from the wheel directly onto the paper. You can see the difference. This one's very light and this one's really bold. I actually have to say I love how you get such great techniques with one color wheel. Alright, I cleaned off my work area so we can go ahead and start putting the card together. So as you can see, it's very soft. The paper is very soft and you have really light color. It's a pretty thin paper as far as weight is concerned. So the colors didn't saturate all the way through, which I like. Now I'm going to use my Xyron wide runner for the back of this because I want to make sure, because even though you heat dry and everything, your paper is going to curl a little bit. So I want to make sure that I have even adhesive coverage along the back of that card so it doesn't buckle when I actually put it onto the card. Now I will tell you, Xyron is extremely sticky, which is great because that's what we're going to want for this card. We're going to want that adhesive to stick pretty well to that paper because it is a little bit bold from the water. So I'm just going to lay down another stripe here down the side, make sure I get some good coverage there. We can go ahead and put that aside. We clean off the areas I don't want any adhesive residue. And I've already cut down a piece of paper, a very light blue, just to match the light blue that's on the watercolor. And I'm just going to adhere that down, my watercolor piece down to that piece of paper. I'm going to press hard so I can make sure I have all the coverage. So I don't know if I can pick it up here, but can you see the very faint lines in the watercolor? So your watercolor doesn't look flat. It actually seems to have a texture to it. So we're going to use a white card base for this. And I'm just going to line it off to the side. And I already cut that Simon Says stamp sentiment, thanks sentiment out because we really don't need a lot for this card. I'm just going to go ahead and grab a yellow piece of ribbon. It's just a sheer ribbon that came out of my ribbon bin. And we're just going to line that down on the side. I would just kind of want a border just to give so the project doesn't look really flat. Just going to run some adhesive, Xyron adhesive, down the back of the paper so just so I can have my ribbon attached to it. I don't have to do it all the way across this so I don't need to waste my adhesive. I just want to get it where the top of the ribbon is going to stick and the bottom of the ribbon is going to stick. Just going to line it up, Go ahead and pull it all the way to the back, stick it down, and I don't need that leftover ribbon, so we can just go ahead and cut and get rid of that piece there. I can save that for another project. Alright, so our card is easily and quickly coming together. So that's going to be my watercolor layer, and there we're going to go ahead and stick our sentiment on top. Now, since it's such a tiny and delicate sentiment, we really want to run this through the Xyron sticker maker, which is going to make sure to get adhesive everywhere on the back of this, so we don't have to like worry about putting glue dots everywhere. So all you have to do is put your sentiment or your small piece, whatever you're using, down into the little top of the X, and you're just going to gently pull through, and right underneath you're going to see a cutter right there in the bottom. You just need to rip it off, and now you want to press your sentiment into the paper so you can make sure you get all that adhesive. Just remove the top film, and now your sentiment is now a sticker. So I'm going to gently peel that off of its backing and lay that down over the ribbon and on the paper very carefully so I don't mess anything up. Now I do have a little bit of adhesive from the backing of the strip, so I'm just going to grab an eraser real quick and just wipe across to remove some of that adhesive. You don't want it to get stuck on a card later. Alrighty, so that's our card, and I don't want it to be flat, so I'm going to go ahead and use some foam dots. I think I've told you in several of my other videos, I hoard these things in my stamp room. I always have them for a lot of the projects I put together. I just like to have dimension to my projects. Even if it is a one layer card, I still feel the need for the panel to pop sometimes, so everything doesn't look like it's just smushed together, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and flick the backs off of all of these little squares. Then to come to think of it, I could have just used a larger foam tape for this project, so I wouldn't have to be pulling off all these little backings, but you know, that's how it goes. It's a afterthought, so not too time consuming to remove those. Now again, I received these products from Oriental Trading Company, and I'm giving my honest review, and I have to say I really like the watercolor paper as well as this Watercolor Wheel Stack Pack. This is definitely going to be products that I'm going to keep in my stamp room. I love the look of the cards and how you can get two separate effects from the same exact pigment ink. So again, here is the really watered down version, and here is the one directly from the pot to the paper. Alright, so there you go everybody. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me. See you later. Don't forget to follow me at gotjoycreations.blogspot.com. Thanks a lot for visiting me today, and I hope to see you soon. Take care everybody.